In December 2025, Homeland Security launched Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota. It was the largest civil immigration enforcement operation in the agency's history. More than 3,000 federal agents descended on the state. The surge brought immediate chaos. Communities reported aggressive tactics, resulting in tear gas deployments, widespread panic, and the destabilization of entire neighborhoods. Minnesota's political leadership pushed back. Governor Tim Walz and local officials refused to deploy state law enforcement or devote local resources to assist federal agents. The state took offensive action. On January 12th, Minnesota officially filed a lawsuit against the federal government in an attempt to halt the operation entirely. By drawing a hard line against federal directives, Minnesota's leaders triggered a direct, high-stakes confrontation between state sovereignty and federal executive power. The response from Washington was immediate. Exactly one day after Minnesota filed its lawsuit, the president took aim at the state's leadership. Taking to social media, the president promised the great people of Minnesota that, quote, "the day of reckoning and retribution is coming." That threat materialized a week later. On January 20th, the Justice Department served 6 federal grand jury subpoenas targeting Minnesota's highest officials. They compelled the production of all communications, directives, and policy manuals relating to immigration enforcement going back a full year. To the public, the machinery of the federal justice system appeared to be locking on to the state's leadership, setting the groundwork for criminal indictments meant to decapitate Minnesota's government. Behind the doors of the federal courthouse, the Justice Department had to legally justify unleashing these grand jury subpoenas. Their stated premise was severe. They claimed to be investigating state officials for potential violations of federal criminal law, specifically statutes regarding the harboring of undocumented immigrants and the obstruction of government functions. To support this, federal prosecutors pointed to actions like internal county emails that instructed staff not to consent to ICE entry, or training materials advising employees on how to legally respond to federal agents. On paper, the department carefully framed criminal inquiry into local politicians who had crossed the line into breaking federal law. Minnesota officials immediately moved to quash the subpoenas in court. They argued the criminal investigation was a facade, masking a calculated political retaliation. To prove this, they laid out a meticulously documented timeline. It started with the fact that the existence of the subpoenas leaked to the press 3 days before they were even served, with reporters citing U.S. officials as the source. On the exact same day as those leaks, the White House published an article expressly blaming the tensions on state officials who, quote, refused to partner with the Trump administration. The final piece of evidence arrived 4 days later, when the Attorney General sent a direct letter to Governor Walz. The letter demanded that the governor repeal, explicitly ordered him to, quote, change course and partner with the administration. This undeniable paper trail brought the matter before United States District Judge Patrick Schiltz. He reviewed the Justice Department's criminal premise against the sequence of documented threats. His ruling was scathing. He wrote that the department's asserted investigatory purpose was risible, concluding that launching a criminal investigation to coerce political opponents was a blatantly unlawful and unethical use of the grand jury process. To legally halt the Justice Department in its tracks, the court relied on a foundational piece of American law. The 10th Amendment establishes the concept of dual sovereignty. From this amendment comes the anti-commandeering rule. This rule dictates that the federal government cannot compel states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. They cannot put a financial or legal gun to a state's head to force compliance. Applied to Minnesota, this meant the state and its political subdivisions had an absolute, constitutionally protected right to decline devoting their local resources to assist federal immigration enforcement. The subpoenas were targeting activity that was entirely legal. The framers of the Constitution designed this exact friction between state and federal power to serve as a mutual restraint, deliberately limiting the reach of the federal government. Relying on this constitutional bedrock, the judge granted the motions to quash the subpoenas, permanently dissolving the federal demands for the state's internal records. The ruling served as a massive stress test for the American legal system. Faced with the extreme weight of the executive branch and a highly politicized Justice Department, the structural safeguards built into the Constitution held firm. The court's decision reached a definitive verdict on the investigation itself. By attempting to force state officials into political compliance through criminal threats, federal prosecutors had weaponized the grand jury process against the very constitutional protections they were sworn to uphold.